Good evening. Hello and welcome. It is day 2 of our 3-day challenge where we are healing from our heartbreak after divorce, after relationships, after situationships. We are talking about that. We are looking at how we're healing because we recognize that we don't have to stay here. Like, okay, it happened. You're hurt. This person hurt you, vice versa. Now what, right? We get to move past the hurt. And so yesterday we talked about 3 truths that is very important to keep in mind when it comes to self-care and using self-care as a means of healing from your heartbreak. So we talked yesterday about the fact that you are valuable, you are important, and you do matter. And just because the relationship failed does not mean that you are a failure. So that's going to be really important to recognize that moving forward. The other thing that we talked about yesterday was the fact that the truth of the matter is this too shall pass. Like, this is not going to last for forever. In a year from now, you're going to look back and you're like, yeah, you remember so and so. Yeah, right. So this pain, the wounds that you're experiencing, they're raw right now. And that's what we kind of talked about yesterday, that these wounds are raw. You're hurt, you may be embarrassed, you may be angry, you may be frustrated, but guess what? In a year from now, in a couple of months from now, just depending, um, this will not be as painful and it will not be as big of a deal. I remember when I was going through my separation and divorce, it seemed like it was taking up so much of my time, my effort, my energy. It was like, oh, this is the worst, right? So in the moment, and maybe the weeks, the months after, it was like, oh, but guess what? Here it is, years later, and that experience is like this tiny blip. It's a tiny blip on the timeline, and so that is something that you can use to encourage yourself. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Rachel Hunter. I am your licensed clinical social worker with RDH Counseling and Consulting, where we help you help yourself and help you become your healthiest version of yourself, including dealing with breakups. There are very many of our clients that are heartbroken, that are stressed, that are anxious, that are going through divorce or breakups. And so we're able to help you process, work through, heal, and keep it moving. And eventually, if you'd like, to get to healthy relationships. But it does start with you connecting and recognizing that, hey, I've got to deal with what I'm going through. I've got to recognize that, yes, I'm in pain, but this pain does not last for forever. And even though the relationship was a failure, you're not a failure. So that part is important. And that's an important part of this journey. So welcome and hello. It's day 2 of our 3-day challenge. So as you come in, let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to say hello if you're watching us on a watch party. Hello, welcome. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you want to share what you've done or maybe some of your experience, you are more than welcome to do that. At the end, I'm going to let you all know about our self-care course that we provide. It's a 4-week group coaching, and it includes you get 30 days of affirmations, you get a lot of bonus videos, as well as a community. And that was one of the things we talked about yesterday as well, that you need to have a supportive community around you when you're going through a breakup. And especially after the breakup, you do need to have that. So as you come in, let us know where you're tuning in from. So tonight, we are looking at how to use forgiveness as a form of self-care and as a way to help you go through a breakup and to be able to heal and move forward, right? So we are talking about, and I got my notes here. So 3 ways that you can actually use forgiveness as self-care after a breakup. So the first thing that's going to be important is recognizing, like, why do I even need to forgive? Right? We're hurt. This person did whatever they did to you, and it hurts. It's painful. And a lot of times we're mad, we're upset. Like, really? Right? So we are upset. And guess what? It's okay. But we don't have to stay there. We can choose to forgive. So let's start by talking about why we forgive. Like, why forgiveness? Like, how's that even come up? Why do we need to do that? What are the benefits of using forgiveness? So let's think about this, right? With forgiveness, what we're doing is we're saying, I choose to no longer be angry, to hold on to bitterness, to hold on to resentment. And I choose to release that person, right? So it doesn't mean that we're saying that what they did wasn't wrong. And depending on what they did, it doesn't mean that there are not consequences, right, for the behavior. And it does not mean that if you forgive this person, you have to reconcile with them and reconnect with them, especially if they're dangerous, right? So, no, we're not doing that. But understanding that forgiveness is instead a choice that we make to no longer hold them and expect anything from them. Okay. Now, the benefit of engaging in forgiveness is really for you. Like, that is key. That is what is important for you to recognize, that when you forgive, it's not for the other person. So last night we talked about how there's a saying. I guess I need to look it up to see exactly the correct phrasing on it, but I'm paraphrasing here just a little bit. And what it says is basically, when you are holding on to bitterness, unforgiveness, resentment, it's like you are drinking poison and expecting the person that you're upset with, expecting them to die. Right. And so that is exactly what bitterness, resentment does to us. It poisons us. And so when we are able to forgive, it releases us. So think about the amount of energy and effort that it's taking to hold on to that anger um, and that hurt. So I'll share a little bit as a therapist. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a certified life coach. And so when, as in my role as a therapist, a lot of the individuals that I work with are have been really mistreated. And so there is bitterness, there's anger, there's hurt. Well, think about that. For years, if you're carrying around anger, what does it do to your body? Right? So you're angry. So think about what you do when you get angry. You breathe heavy, your heart beats fast. It creates, this sense of stress and anxiety in you. And long-term effects of having and holding on to anger, research shows it really does a job on your body. So things like high blood pressure, things like hypertension, and then the emotional and the mental impact of holding on to bitterness and anger. It leads to anxiety, it leads to depression, it leads to things like stress. And you just don't have that peace of mind. So you are walking around bitter and angry, and this person has, in very many cases now, not all, but this person has gone on about their day and their life, and you are the one still holding the bag and expecting somehow for them to be impacted, when at the end of the day, it's you. It's you. So you get today to choose to release that person and to release yourself. Fresh anger, bitterness, resentment is heavy. It is heavy. It is bondage. It is weight. So when you choose to forgive, it really does help you. And I'll share again. You all, I've been transparent. As I went through my divorce, I was pissed. I was pissed because at one point I was homeless. Okay, yeah, that part, right? And yesterday we talked about sometimes there's embarrassment there. Yeah, I'm being raped and you're homeless. Now, how does wait what? Right? So I had reason to be angry. I had reason to be upset. And so there were days where I would wake up and look around at my situation, and be livid. Like, what is really going on here? Right? But after a certain amount of time, you have to say to yourself, now, am I going to continue to be upset, wake up every day pissed? And, when you get angry, a lot of times, we hold it in our stomach. So your stomach is all messed up, you got the butterflies, or your heart is beating fast, right? So you're having anxiety. Some people might have panic attacks and things of that nature. You get to say, okay, you know what? Enough is enough. And I got to that point where I was like, okay, you know what, Ray? And I'm laughing a little bit. But it's like, you know what, Ray? We have a choice. We can either continue to be pissed at this person, or we can say, okay, we're going to move on. Because if I remain pissed, right, that means I'm staying stuck in this situation. And I'm ready to move past this situation. So when you choose to forgive, it really does help you move forward a lot quicker than if you continue to ruminate. And that's just kind of thinking over and over about what happened and why it happened. And, oh, I can't believe they did this, right? So you have a choice. So the first thing when we talk about the 3 ways to use forgiveness, way number 1 is to first recognize the value and the benefit of forgiveness, of engaging in forgiveness, and choosing to forgive because of the health and the emotional and mental benefits of engaging in it. So that's way number 1. Way number 2 is recognizing that, we get to choose. So we become empowered. When we choose to forgive, we are empowering ourselves. So think about it. If you're in a situation where this wasn't necessarily, say, what you wanted, right? And you are caught off guard by, what's going on, you can at times feel helpless and feel powerless. So when we choose to engage in forgiveness, it really does restore the power back to you. It really does empower you. So Everett Worthington, he's from VCU. He's one of the professors there, and he has a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 5-step process when it comes to choosing to forgive others. And I really like it. So REACH is the acronym. And so the first letter is R. So it's recalling the hurt, right? So the first thing when it comes to forgiveness is like being honest. Like, yeah, this hurt. This really hurt me. And, I'll share. I was not always a person that would be upfront with my feelings, right? So to say, this really impacted me, this really hurt, that's going to be the first step. That's important to recognize what this breakup has done, how it has impacted you. So the first step in this is recalling the hurt, like being honest with yourself. Like, don't just keep trying to keep it moving. And that's kind of what we talked about yesterday. So if you haven't seen the video from yesterday, go back and watch it. And if you feel like this is helping, share this, invite your friends to watch it. But recall the hurt, be honest with yourself about it. Recognize that, yeah, you were hurt. So the E is empathize with the offender. Now, this part, now I'm gonna be honest. It's forgiveness sometimes is easier said than done. So I'm gonna be honest, and just make sure that you're aware of that, because what we're saying is you're able to. So think about it from this perspective. If you were to have a conversation with this person, it's looking at it from their perspective. Now, do you agree with them? You don't necessarily have to, but understanding from their perspective how and the why, perhaps, of why they did what they did, how they may have been feeling. When we do that, it really does help us to have some empathy and some compassion on the person. So a lot of times people who you know the saying, hurt people. I'm just going to let that sit there for a second. Hurt people. And so individuals that are hurt and are not whole and healed are oftentimes unable to remain in relationships, right? And so if we're able to kind of look at the person who hurt us from that vantage point of, hmm, this might have been an individual who was hurt and was not able to give you the love, the care, the support that you were looking for. So when we do that, when we are able to empathize with them, it really does allow us to have some compassion, which makes it a lot easier to forgive them. Does that kind of make sense? So that's the second letter. A is for altruistic gift. And this is basically us, the perspective that we have about forgiveness, that forgiveness really is a gift. And we can give that gift to someone else. So now listen to this and think about this. Think about a time where you did somebody wrong, right? So you offended someone, you hurt someone, you broke their heart, or you did something that was upsetting to them, and they forgave you. What was that experience like for you, right? How did that feel to know that this person had actually released you, that they had forgiven you, and they had kind of wiped the slate clean? How did that feel, right? To receive that gift of forgiveness from them. Now, that part is important because if you can remember that feeling and we couple it with being able to empathize with the person, right? Then it makes it a lot easier for us to forgive that individual, even though they did something that was wrong to us. And then C is commit to the process. Again, remember, forgiveness is not easy. It is not easy. But you get to choose. It is a choice, meaning you have the power to do so. And so commit to that. I choose to forgive. And I'm going to give y'all some homework to do. And what I want you to do is just write a letter. And this is kind of what Mr. Everett talks about, is writing that letter. Just write a letter, a little snippet to say, I today choose to forgive, and put that person's name in there, right? This is us committing to forgive this person for whatever they did, because it's a choice and we are empowered. The last one is H. Hold on to the forgiveness. Now this this can be challenging. And I'm laughing a little bit, but it can be very challenging to actually hold on to that. You are so welcome and thank you, Chokmaya. I believe I said that right. I love that name. I may have said it wrong. Forgive me. You are so welcome. And so when you are choosing to forgive, it's an everyday thing. Every day, let me tell you, I'm using myself, I'm putting myself out there. And this is what I tell my clients, right? Anything that you have gone through is not just for you. It is not just for you. Hey, Rachel. And, when we go through things, we are able to use the experience to help bring someone else forward or through the pain that they're going through. So when we are looking at a breakup, right, you may be reminded, you may say, okay, today's the day I'm going to forgive. And then tomorrow you wake up and you look at your situation that may be caused um, from the breakup. So I told y'all at one point I was homeless. And so I would wake up and be like, man, I'm right back here, right? I'm here. I am homeless. And I had a choice. I could either go back to the place of pissness, festivity. I could either do that, or I could again choose to forgive. And it takes time. And so if you find that you have decided to forgive the person, but you are getting angry again, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Again, remember that first one is recalling the hurt, meaning being honest with yourself, recognizing that, yeah, I was hurt. This did hurt. But also getting back to, hey, I choose to forgive. I am releasing this person so that I can release myself from the anger, from the bitterness. So that is way number two to use forgiveness as self-care after a breakup. And then the last one is to release yourself. So we've talked about forgiving other people for what they've done, but then sometimes we need to forgive ourselves, right? We we have something called in therapy. There's something called cognitive distortions. So cognitive distortion is like a flawed or faulty way of looking. So you probably have heard the term stinking thinking. So that's what that is. And one of the distorted ways that we sometimes think, especially during and after a breakup, is personalization and blame. So this is where we kind of play the blame game and we say, oh, I should have known better, right? The shoulds are also another type of distorted thinking. And with the shoulds, this is where we're saying to ourselves, I should have known better. I should not have gotten into this situation in the first place, right? And so we beat ourselves up and we really mistreat ourselves when we are at our lowest point, right? So the third way of engaging in self-care is to forgive ourselves, plain and simple. Now that sometimes is hard as well because we hold ourselves to these standards, we have these expectations that, quite frankly, are not realistic. Sometimes we create these expectations of perfection, and we're not. We're people. Do we make mistakes? Yeah, it happens. And so we have to work on forgiving ourselves. And so it may sound something like, and this is what I had to, again, being transparent. I consider myself to be very intelligent, right? Relatively speaking. But I consider myself to be very intelligent. I've considered myself to be valuable and worthwhile, right? But then it's like, okay, Ray, wait a minute now, because how did we end up here? We're so smart and we got it together. How did how did we end up here? Like you should have known better. Like you should have known better. This should not have happened. What's wrong with you? Right? And so we blame ourselves. We talk very mean and very unkind to ourselves at times. And so we have the opportunity to really release ourselves by forgiving ourselves and really, having grace with yourself. Be kind to yourself. One of my other clinician friends, Natasha Jones, always, encourages people, be kind to yourself, right? And so when it comes to forgiving yourself, that is key. And that is what we will teach you more of in our program, self-care, becoming your own best friend. And it is important after a breakup that you really engage in self-care, that you look for ways to take care of yourself, and that you use forgiveness as a means of forgiving yourself. So let me hear from you all when it comes to forgiveness on a scale of 1 to 10, and I'm going to put a poll in here. How easy or hard is it for you to forgive other people, when they've done you wrong? And that's important to recognize. Like, we're not saying that these people haven't done something wrong to us, but when it comes to releasing them and to releasing yourself, how easy or hard has it been? 10 is, it is very, very hard. Oftentimes I don't. And 1 is like, yeah, this is really easy, easy peasy. Let me hear from y'all. I'm typing it in if you can hear it. Again, how easy or hard is it for you to forgive others or yourself? I just want to kind of take a quick poll on that. How easy is it? Um, that's how I felt. I'm smart. I'm not going to beat myself up again. And it's easy for me to forgive others. I don't know. So a 2, okay? And from my spouse, a 10. Gotcha, gotcha. That whole piece of things is it hits us. It hits us. And that's important to recognize that we all have areas that we can grow in. And there are times where it's easier to forgive somebody else, right? But then when it comes to that self forgiveness, it can be very, very challenging to do that. So have grace, recognize that yes, this might be something that I struggle with. That forgiveness is not an overnight thing, it is a choice, but it is going to take ongoing commitment to forgiving and releasing yourself and that person. So for homework, I just want you to write that down. I choose to forgive, and write whoever that person is, because you can use that to help remind yourself. So when you wake up and you're in that situation, one of the other things was when I went through my separation, I had to leave the city that I was in. So I had to leave that city, which meant that I had to travel a long time. And I love sleeping. I enjoy my rest. So that meant that I had to get up. I was having to wake up super extra early to get ready to leave. And so every day I was reminded that, of this situation. So sometimes every day you're going to have to actively choose to forgive. I don't forgive myself as well. You mentioned we are only human, and I let myself down, so I will forgive way better. And that part is important. Have grace with yourself. Recognize that we are all human. We're not perfect. And one of the things to that will help you kind of recognize that you are engaging in some of those distorted thinking, is if you hear yourself saying should. I should have known better. I should have done differently. Those shoulds or those oughts or those, things like that kind of let you know that, hey, I might be engaging in some of this distorted thinking, which is impacting how I feel, which is leading to unhealthy behaviors. So, um, just keep in mind that when it comes to forgiveness and dealing with the breakup, we can use forgiveness in those three ways to help us move forward and to heal. Okay, so this is night two. If y'all have questions, let me know and I'll answer them. Any questions? Or how have you, what is your goal? What is your commitment? And do you have someone in mind that you plan to forgive? So I want to hear about that. So this is day two of our 3-day healing after breakup challenge. So this is day number two. Tomorrow will be our last day. We'll be talking about how to move forward after a breakup, how to heal from that, becoming your own best friend and becoming your healthiest self so that you can, if you choose, be able to get into a healthy relationship. And so when we get into those other relationships, it's going to also be important for us to learn how to connect with someone else. So we've got to learn how to get healed from our distrust or from the hurt so that when you do enter into a new relationship, you don't have this guard up. Because sometimes that's what can happen. We put this guard up in this wall. Well, when you put walls up, it keeps you safe, yes, but it also keeps out the love that you're looking for. And so, very many sometimes the women that I coach are finding it really challenging to get into these relationships with the type of men that they want because they have these walls up. So, in a couple of weeks, we are going to be sharing about our new program that we have, our new course, where we're loving like we've never been hurt. And so we are learning how to connect with the men in our lives in a way that is healthy and meaningful. You are so welcome. You're definitely welcome for this information. It's my pleasure to share it. And I'm using myself as an example. So I'm being transparent with what I went through. I'm a human, I'm a person, things happen. But as I've learned, you don't have to stay there. You can forgive. And as you forgive, it really is a form of self care. And that self care is going to help you become your healthiest self. So I would love to connect with you, to partner with you in part of our group that we have. If you want to join and take part in our course, The link is here. Also, we have a self-care guide, so you can download that. That's a free download, and it's going to give you steps of how you can go about engaging in self-care, especially after a breakup. Even without a breakup, self-care is important, but even more so after a breakup. Okay, so join us tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, and we're going to be talking about some of the reasons why women stay in, and not just women, but why people are remaining in relationships even though they are unhealthy. So we're going to talk about that. So it's been a pleasure. I will see you all tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Invite your friends, and be good to yourself. Forgive yourself. Choose today to forgive yourself and others, because there are a lot of benefits, emotional, mental, and physical benefits when we do release that anger and that bitterness. Okay. So you guys be blessed, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 3 of our challenge.